defense. I thought they were really good. I think, what I liked, Sarah, is that there was some back and forth, but the plays that were made were earned. It was good competitive ball. I like the way that our guys are towing the line, but I thought the backs are really doing a good job pressing the line of scrimmage. There's some times that the defense makes it challenging, but I thought led by, Ron Gould does such a great job with that group, but I thought all of those guys really showed well. I think Kyron and, Blake, you could see them, they popped some really good runs, and then, even Ronnie had a really good one towards the latter part of practice, but those guys are doing a great job. They're so conscientious, and pleased with where they're at.
So it's been a sign that's been a consistent organization that has a long time. What did you guys see on the tape, or just about his achievements that they moved to goals?
Well, I think the first thing is he is a complete player. He's obviously excellent on the early downs, but, the twitch, the ability to be able to work edges, use his leverage to his advantage. He's a guy that we're very familiar with from just going against him when he was in Seattle in the earlier parts of his career. Went to Buffalo for that year, and then last year. I mean, you watch the tape, and it's hard to find a play that he's not productive on. I thought he was so consistent. We talk about how important that is to be consistent, snap in and snap out, and he's been that so far. And it certainly isn't limited to the early downs, but we're really fortunate that we were able to get him, and I'm glad it's with us.
Two-part question.
Oh, here we go.
Is there any way Matthew participates in the Jonathan tomorrow, or is he?
No, just because he'll be doing a workout on his own during that time period, and so he is able to do a little bit more, which is good, and things are progressing well, but he won't take part in the jog through because he'll be doing some other stuff during the week.
And then
what's the second?
The second question is looking ahead to the joint practice with the Cowboys. What are you hoping to see, and are there any areas in particular that you're going to focus on?
You know what? I think it's a great way to be able to test our rules, go against another team. Coach Schottenheimer's a guy I've known for a long time. It's been great to be able to work with him, and they got great players. And so I think to be able to see some different schemes, they might do some stuff that's similar, they might do some stuff that's different. These aren't things that we necessarily game plan for, but I think it's a good test of our rules. There's some different front mechanics, some different defensive coverages that we'll see, some different offensive schemes and personnel. So I think it's really valuable for us to be able to get all three phases, some different work that we wouldn't get otherwise. And really for a lot of the guys that, as you know, that don't play in the preseason. And that's super important. Those practices, in essence, supplement the preseason games for us. We heavily lean towards getting more reps for our starters. And so that's been something that we feel like has served us well, but it still is in a controlled setting, while knowing that sometimes things can happen. But we feel good about that, and we got good work with them last year, and looking forward to it.
What do you feel is in particular going up against the scrimmage like that with the Cowboys? What are you specifically looking for, especially offensively? Like you said, guys that haven't really participated during camp, and this is their opportunity to do so.
Yeah, really in the scrimmages, Nick, we're looking at a lot of our starters get the majority of those reps. And then the other guys will end up playing the majority of the time in the preseason games. So that's where it's really beneficial for us to be able to get our starters, what would be close to equivalent to a game. You try to get about 50 shots of work. You get a bunch of different situations. You're getting normal down and distance. You're getting some third down, get back on track work. You're getting some red areas, some high fringe. You get a 2-minute drive. And so that's beneficial to be able to get, what inevitably does come up in the majority of the games. And so it's going to be a good thing. It's in a controlled setting, so we feel good about that. And they've been a group that we've worked with before that's gone really well.
When you have Desjuan Johnson running 40 yards down the field with Kyron Williams, what type of message does that send to the team?
That's what we're looking for. Giff Smith does such a great job, and Coach Shula preaches it, and Coach Canigla, really all of our defensive coaches, pursuit to the football effort. Dez is a great example on that play you're talking about, but we try to highlight good examples of really all 11 bursting to the football, especially once the ball declares. I think that becomes an unconscious competence that we're looking for from our group. You're creating that muscle memory, and that's good to be able to see from Dez.
And can you talk to me about the camp that Braden Fisk has had?
He's been awesome. I know, with some of the things that he worked through in the offseason, he's so mentally and physically tough. I think he's been able to just continuously increase his workload. Gift's done a great job with that, but Braden Fisk is a total stud. He's got higher standards for himself than anything else, and I sure have high standards for him, but I love what he's all about. He is a grown man for a second-year player. He plays the game that way. He's tough, he's smart, he's competitive. He's everything that we're looking for in a Ram.
What does Jimmy bring to the quarterback, and also what do you want to see from him with the lines
I think he brings? He brings a wealth of experience. You know, he's going into year 12. He started and played in a lot of big-time games. He's won a lot of games. He knows what it takes. He's got a charisma and a presence, too. You know, we're so fortunate to have Matthew, but to have the luxury of having a guy that you guys have heard me talk about it, that I think is a starting quarterback in this league, to be able to come in and do a great job. And really, I think both Jimmy and Stetson have been excellent. You know, they've gotten a lot better. We'll look forward to getting number 9 back out here, but I just want Jimmy to continue to be himself. And, you know, and that's more than enough. And he's got a great way, just with the way that, you know, he's got a great vibe about himself. And, you know, what I like is, you know, sometimes things don't go perfect as a quarterback, but what does the next snap look like? I think he's done a great job of being able to respond in the right way, stacking some good plays, and I think today was a good reflection of
What
that.
are some of the areas of growth that you see in Stetson, especially not just this camp, prior to?
I think the biggest thing is, you know, number one, I'm seeing a lot of smiles out here. You know, I think guys are at their best when they're immersed in the moment, they're enjoying it. This is still a game that when people are at their best, they love everything that it accompanies. And that's, you know, whether it's pursuit of mastery, the challenges, overcoming adversity, but I just feel like he's a guy that's totally present. I think the other thing, Nick, that you don't take for granted is the command of the huddle. You know, how clean can you look at the other 10 guys, communicate clearly, formation, snap count, any sort of adjustment that's necessary, the concept. And we have some already calls, and sometimes we'll call 2 plays in the huddle. He's done a really excellent job. I think Dave Ragone deserves a ton of credit, and really, you know, Matthew Stafford for the way that he's mentored him. Those 2 guys, I've just been so impressed with the way that they've poured into him, and it's really fun to see where Stetson's at. He's done a great job, and you know, it was a really cool connection that he and you know, that he made with a bunch of guys today.
Sean, outside of the 1 year with Bobby Wagner, you tended not to invest a lot, either in terms of money or significant draft capital in inside linebackers. Why philosophically have you chosen to usually go that route?
No, I wouldn't necessarily. You know, I think you don't ever want to pigeonhole yourself into an all-encompassing approach. I think there's some players that maybe the rest of the league doesn't value that we value, and we kind of know about inside. You know, I feel really good about this group. Greg Williams does an excellent job. Nate Landman's had a really good camp. Troy Reeder's a guy that's played a lot of football, and I think Omar Spates is ready to really take the next step going into year 2. He did a great job coming in as an undrafted free agent. I think we've had some success with guys that are unheralded. You look at Corey Littleton. Obviously, we invested a 3rd-round pick in Ernest Jones a few years ago, and he's a total stud. I'm happy for the success he's had in Seattle, but I think sometimes that's just the way that it played out. You don't like the pick we used on Pupal? I'm just messing.
Well, what are you? Obviously, I know he's been a little banged up, but just where is he sort of at in the process?
It's hard to say because he just got out here. He has done a nice job. We're kind of just easing him back in because he did have a calf. Sean Dolak's another guy that has an undrafted free agent, had a really productive collegiate career. Been really pleased with him. So I like that group as a whole. We're excited to watch those guys compete.
Where are you at this point, line wise, and how critical is that going to be?
That's a big question. Here's where I think we're at. You know, certainly we can't wait to be able to get Alaric Jackson back out there. He's a stud. He's working really hard in the meantime, and I feel fortunate that he's able to get some good work, even though it's not in some of these team settings that'll be a benefit. But Rob Havenstein and Coleman Shelton, I think, have done an excellent job. You know, guys that are some veteran presence. I've seen Steve Avila and Kevin Dotson take steps in the right direction. Warren McClendon is a guy that you're seeing play right tackle, play left tackle. You see Bo Limmer play all 3 interior spots. Justin Dietich is another guy that's got work. And I'm really pleased with what David Quessenberry has done as a veteran player that's shown that he can really play left or right tackle. DJ Humphries has come in, what seems like he got here yesterday, had a couple of Zoom meetings, and then he's out here on the practice field. So we're growing. A lot of work to do. We know that you're going to probably end up playing with 9 offensive linemen at some point. You hope to be able to stay as healthy as possible. Last year was, a good eye-opener for us. We better do a good job of building depth. You can't have enough guys that have played meaningful football and that are tough, smart, competitive, and communicate with one another. And I think Ryan Lindell's done an excellent job. I really feel fortunate for the leadership that he provides, and then some of those guys I mentioned at the earlier part.
Would you say has had the biggest standout and taken a step forward in this game?
It's hard for me to single one guy out. I think, you've seen the usual cast of characters do an excellent job. I certainly noticed, Kobe Turner, even though he hasn't been out here the last couple of days, he and Jared Verse have been, stable guys. Braden Fisk, you've seen Kuna Ford, Byron Young. I've really felt our front make their presence felt. Nate Landman is a guy that's done an excellent job, and then Quentin Lake seems like he's always around the football. I think all of our corners, led by Albert Pleasant, have done a really good job. And then offensively, I could name a bunch of guys. Devontae Adams really shined yesterday, and then you see Puka Nacua make incredible plays, and Kyron. So we feel really fortunate that a lot of guys are doing what they're supposed to do. It's hard for me to highlight one guy individually, and that's what I love about this. It's the greatest team sport there is, and I really love this team.
There's a guy like
We've got two more, this one and this one.
When Matthew's doing his workouts on his own, what do those entail?
I have to ask Reggie Scott a little bit more particularly, but it's really just kind of it's static throwing. It's some of the unloaded running on the treadmill. Sometimes it might even be walking. He's able to do a little bit of lighter cardio and able to do some good core work. But it's more just functional strength surrounding the area while making sure that you don't do anything to set yourself back based on the trajectory that he's doing. But we are looking forward to getting him and easing him back into football. Hopefully in the near future.
Adam, last one.
There you go.
Perfect. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rob.
See y'all.